you really learn to love and appreciate the people you have in your 20s. Life is really short, and I didn't really suffer a lot of loss. Yes, I did, in my pre-20, but in my 20s, those losses were different, and they were far too close for comfort. And you start to realize the value of life. So I would say, listen, relationships are a choice, but choose well. And when it's not serving you, and it doesn't have any purpose, I'm not gonna say quick cut it off, but sometimes you got to snip and cut it right on off. Welcome to the Inner Circle. This episode is sponsored by M Club, co-working space by day, event space by night. This space is perfect for your upcoming celebrations, whether it's a small intimate gathering, a dinner, celebrating a milestone, or looking to do a corporate event. This is the space where you want to be. It's modern, chic, minimalistic, so you can really have fun with your creativity. Also, if you are an entrepreneur, small business owner, or looking to just get out the house and get away from that home office, M Club is a co-working space really set for you. From amazing amenities to a personal gym and having on-site chefs to really feed your needs for lunch, snacks, whatever it is, they've got you covered. So come on in, check it out today, and book your tour at hello@mworldclub.com. Now, welcome back. We're here with another episode of The Inner Circle. Y'all, today, I'm gonna hook you up, okay? I got 20 things. Now, I split them up by decade, but 20 things that my 20s taught me. So I'm gonna share with you 10 things that I wish somebody would have told me before I turned 20 years old. And then I'm gonna share with you another 10 things about things I learned in my 20s. Are you ready? I am. Here we are. Let's go. All right, so thing number one. This is 10 before 20. The challenges of change. Now, we talked about this on the last episode when we were wrapping up, and it's all about transition. Like, the thing about change is it's good. Like, it stretches you, it grooms you, it grows you. But the thing about change is it's also uncomfortable. Like, who wants to learn something only to have to unlearn it? Who wants to be in a place of comfortability only to have to get uncomfortable? But that is the beauty of transitions. And I really want to share with you that it's going to be challenging, especially when you're in your teens and you're going from middle school to high school, from high school to university. Listen, I can help you, but I can't even really overly prepare you. It's gonna be a lot. You're gonna go through a lot of different things. Your circles are gonna change. Your ideas of friendship are gonna change. Your foundational principles are gonna change. Things that mattered in one season, they're not gonna matter anymore. But at the end of the day, it's all beautiful. So embrace these challenges and go into change head on. Either way, it's gotta happen. How you come out of it, whether you walk in smiling or tumbling, is up to you. So that's number one. Number two, wins and lessons. Do you hear what I said? Wins and lessons. This took me till my 20s to learn because it was all about losses for me. As a teenager, we're superly over dramatic in that era. And for us, if we're not winning and we're losing, there's no way to sugarcoat it. I lost. But unfortunately, that is not the mindset that is going to help you. The beauty of our process is that the journey is what makes us walk in our purpose. So when you're going through life difficulties and you feel like you're in a constant losing season, don't look at it as a loss. Count it as a lesson. The Bible says, count it all joy when you come into multiple temptations or something. I'm gonna find the scripture. But either way, what I'm trying to say is because what comes after that lesson i.e. that loss, is greater than honestly sometimes if you would have won. So you have to go through the process. And that's what makes you you. That's what makes you unique. Your journey is yours and yours alone. So embrace every challenge and turn those losses into lessons. All right. Now, number 3. This one was a little difficult for me because it took me like halfway through my 20s to learn this, but this is still things I wish I knew before I got there. And this is the power of decisions. Like, the thing about decisions is that they govern movement, whether good or bad. Like, whatever you decide to do, you're going to move. The question is, in what direction? I think about life decisions is the result of it is entirely up to how you look at the decision you made. Sometimes it's, okay, I made the wrong choice. Do I believe that I can navigate myself back onto the road that, that was meant for me? Because I really believe that. I believe if I'm gonna make a decision and if it's wrong, like one way or the other, I'm gonna find my way back to the road I was supposed to be on. That's just me taking the long route. That's how I see it. But oftentimes when you do it the wrong way, you feel like you failed and you have to start all over. I use this analogy like a maze. Like when you're in a maze, depending on which way you decide to go, sometimes you come up to a wall. Now, there's 2 things that you can do in this moment. You can either go completely back to the beginning and completely discount the right choices that you did make, or you can get back to another crossroad and make another turn. The route you decide to take is holistically up to you. But either way, whether you choose to start all over or whether you choose to just go back to the last wrong turn you made and make another turn, the journey is yours. And there's no right or wrong answer. The goal of making a decision is just getting yourself into the brain space where you're allowing yourself the ability to decide. Because the worst thing you could do for yourself and the worst thing that you can learn in your teen years is being indecisive and procrastinating. It's inevitable, but at the end of the day, a decision has to be made in order for you to move forward. So whether it's right or wrong, keep on moving and keep on deciding. All right, number 4. Now this one, I thank my parents for this tip because they didn't even know they gave it to me, but I learned from it. And it is the beauty in the unknown. You gotta explore your options and you gotta take your time. Now, I know I just said you gotta decide 5 minutes ago, but you can take your time in making decisions. When I decided to go to university, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest, but in going to university and spending those 5 years in Peterborough, I discovered along the way what I wanted to do. Y'all, I knew by my 3rd year that I wasn't gonna use my degree. I have an entire bachelor's of honors science in biology that is sitting pretty in my office at home because I have not used it, but I don't regret it because the beauty in going into university and just making that decision is I discovered what I wanted to do along the way, and it had nothing to do with my degree. But that decision to decide to go forth and try to pursue a better education, in turn, unlocked a level of creativity in me that I don't think I otherwise would have reached had I not made that decision. Now, did that decision cost me a couple tens of thousands of dollars? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. But at the end of the day, it led me to my purpose and it led me to my career path, which is now an entrepreneur and I'm an event producer. So at the end of the day, there's beauty in not knowing. And I didn't really have a plan going into university. I was just gonna finish the degree. And I told my mom on graduation day, here you go. This one's for you. And that was it. But I loved that she left room for me to kind of explore, and she didn't hold me hostage for not deciding to pursue my degree. Now, she wasn't happy about it, but I wasn't held hostage. Okay, now, number 5. Now, this one, y'all are gonna get to see a little bit more of this in the next episode, but it's mentorship matters. Yeah, I know when we're in our teens, We feel like, nobody gets me and nobody understands me and this world hates me and whatever it is, whatever negative thoughts we like to put in our minds, especially because when we're as a child going into adolescence and going into like your teenage years and growing older, your parents are also going through a lot with how they see you, from being that cute little girl that would run up to them after daycare to like being like, first of all, I'll take the bus. Not me though, daddy, you can come pick me up. But like the reality is like we go through a lot of transition, and sometimes not all parents are able to adapt to that. Now, some are, and for those that are, it's beautiful. But for those who kind of struggle with that transition, mentors are always amazing to have. Now, I say this with a grain of salt because I didn't have one, but I really, really wanted one. Like, I really, really wanted one. I prayed for one for years. And I know when it comes to the church, like sometimes you have like, some of the mothers and stuff take you under their wings, but there's just certain things that happen in those teenage years that are really deep. And you don't really want to go through that judgment or feeling like overbearing. So like a feeling of being overburdened or feeling overbearing, whatever that is. So I would say, even if it's just looking up to somebody who's in their 20s, who's just further along than you, or looking up to a big cousin who sets a great example, just try to glean from somebody and always try to keep the posture of a student, because it matters, especially in your 20s. How you're able to build relationships is super important. Now, I was gonna go to number 6, but because of what I just said, I'm gonna skip to 7 and I'm gonna come back. So number 7 is rules of engagement. And that is learning how to harbor healthy relationships. That is a real struggle as a teenager. I'm not gonna sit here and act like that's easy, because you're going through so much emotionally that you're navigating that you don't even know like how to communicate your feelings. So like trying to harbor healthy relationships sounds foreign, but it's just practicing the first steps to try. Like figuring out you and figuring out what you like and don't like, and then like putting into practice how to communicate that's the foundation of healthy relationships. It's really communication. So I would say like really learning how to express yourself on a deeper level, which starts with understanding yourself. So I think that's super important, and that's a really huge lesson that I really wish I fully understood or even started to understand prior to my 20s, which leads me back to number 6, and that is self-love. It's a lot. It's a lot to embrace that, and I've spoken very vividly about my struggles to embrace that. And even though I can't say fully that I loved myself, like I was sure about me. Like you weren't gonna treat me any and anyhow. Like I had standards, and I had like a way that I didn't want to be disrespectful. I was a church girl, wearing my skirts, until I realized, that wasn't for me. But I didn't let people influence me to do things that I wasn't comfortable with. And I decided to choose me. And even though that may not be holistically what self-love is or what it may be, it's a starting ground, like choosing you and choosing to make a decision that benefits you in the long run, because you learn really quickly in your 20s that there's a lot of selfishness in the world. And though we're not trying to be selfish, like choosing to love yourself before putting yourself in harm's way is super important. So I would definitely say that starting the journey of self-love and understanding why you are the way you are and being able to communicate that to friends and family is super important to learn prior to your 20s. Now, this one's for me. But the world is bigger than you think. That is number 8. I tell you a thing. If y'all don't travel, travel. Like when you travel pre-teens, it shifts your entire perspective in your 20s. I'm not even gonna lie, not pre-teen, sorry, in your teen years. my family, we grew up, we used to do a lot of family vacations, getaways, timeshares, and we were used to traveling, but my brother stopped doing that. I don't know why, but me and my sister were like, appreciate you. And I know it's exam week, but we're going to Florida. And we would get up and go to Florida for vacation in the middle of exam week. I promise you, we did this twice. And what it taught us was, one, it taught us independence, but two, it taught us that there's just so much more that the world has to offer. Like, we engaged in new cultures. There was just new perspectives. You have new self-discoveries. You actually started to learn what's important and what's not. Like, when you go to third world countries and you see people who are barely surviving and don't have clean water, you really start to realize just how closed-minded sometimes we can be and how entitled we could also be. So traveling for me was huge. I will never not travel. Now, COVID had us in a chokehold, but some way, somehow, the Lord is kind and we're out. So y'all, it's time to travel. Now, number 9 is a reality check that I had to get, that I got in my 20s. Because, sometimes in our teenage years, we're just like, oh, no, I know me. But here's the truth. You really don't fully know you yet. Like, you are going to go through rediscovery in your 20s. But it's good to prepare for that prepare for that reality prior to entering that decade. Like, if anyone ever told you that your 20s are going to shape you, it does. It really does. So like, your teen years, they just help you to get to know, like I said, your likes, your dislikes. But being young with not as much of an adult responsibility, listen, you're thriving. You're thriving. It's okay. When bills come, now when the bill is not paid and the light is switched off, then you will know. Then you will know what adulting is. But honestly, just understanding that you're still learning and giving yourself grace to continue to discover the beauties, the intricacies, and the ins and outs of who you are. And number 10 is mind over matter. High school was rough for me. It was rough. Being a PK, so to be honest, it came with respect from the fellas. But it came with a lot of pushback from the ladies and a lot of plotting and a lot of very harmful relationships and a lot of, I don't know how to, it was just misjudgment. But I understood that I came from a 2-parent home and a lot of my friends and my peers in high school didn't really have that. And so I was able to empathize with that reality, but it still didn't make it right. It didn't make it right how they treated me. But at the end of the day, like, just making daily decisions to not succumb to the pressures of life pre-20s is a healthy decision, because it takes so much time in your 20s if you didn't do it in your teens. And I did it at first, and then, I got into my little high school puppy love relationship, and that ruined me, child. It ruined me. But it's okay, because I discovered a lot about me, and it was traumatic. It was traumatic. And it took a little life out of me. But at the end of the day, like, the idea that I'm still here, the idea that I'm sitting here at 30, for me, even if I don't feel like I did well in like mind over matter and like choosing a healthy perspective every day, I did something right? Because I am here and I am breathing. And honestly, I feel like I'm entering my season of thriving. We've been surviving all 20s, and we're about to talk about that. But definitely just calibrating your mind to always see the bright side of things and to see the cup half full than half empty is huge. And the last thing I'll say is, as a little bonus, guess what? Everything is gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right, baby. Like a grandma would say, rocking in her chair, that's gonna be all right. Because it doesn't feel like it. And I can't recall how many moments I had in high school and I was just like, oh, my life is over. Just throwing in the towel, like, first of all, what? out there. After living these 20s, I'm like, oh no, like high school was light work. Well, not really. There are some trauma stories, but like, yeah, like it's going to be okay. Now, for any of you that helped, I definitely want you to like, share, and comment on this post or on this video. But guess what? We got more coming. So now we're going into the next 10 things. And these are 20 things I really did learn in my 20s. Now, this episode is sponsored by the one and only Meraki Makes. She is a local Toronto-based Black-owned business serving us island drinks from near and far. Y'all need to try this. She's got 4 amazing flavors, so check her out on Instagram to learn more about these flavors. And here we go. Rules of Engagement 2.0. Because I told you about the relationship stuff when in like pre-20s, but when you get to your 20s, you realize relationships do matter. Like this, I'm gonna do it by myself, solo dolo, it's me against the world, YOLO. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You really need a circle around you. And that's actually where this entire show was birthed. It's understanding that you need people around you who aren't just enablers. You need people to hold you accountable. You need people to cry with, to be vulnerable with, to be authentic with, but then you also need people who will lift you up. And you learn a lot about relationships in your 20s. You will go through some times. You will have friends who are wolves in sheep's clothing. You may encounter people who are jealous of you and people who you compare yourself to. There are a lot of things emotionally that you go through concerning friendships and any relationship in your 20s. When even in business, like when it comes to business partners, understanding the importance of contracts. Like there are so many things that relationships on a whole teach you in your 20s. But what I also took away as one of my biggest lessons was that my family relationships really shifted in my 20s. When I was in my teenage years, girl, child, everybody hated me and I hated everybody. That's the typical stance. But you really learn to love and appreciate the people you have in your 20s. Life is really short. And I didn't really suffer a lot of loss. Yes, I did. In my pre-20, but in my 20s, those losses were different and they were far too close for comfort. And you start to realize the value of life. So I would say, listen, relationships are a choice, but choose well. And when it's not serving you and it doesn't have any purpose, I'm not going to say cut it off, but sometimes you got to snip and cut it right on off. So use your discernment, figure it out, have a conversation with your friends or your sisters, keep it open, continue to communicate, and from there, you'll know what to do. All right, so number 2, and that is growing pains. And this is all about environments and energy. Like growth isn't always pretty, but it is necessary for reproduction. Now, this is something my 20s taught me, is it's not always where you sow the seed. That's going to be so grammatically incorrect. I'm going to say it again. Where you sow the seed isn't always where you reap it. Your 20s are meant for you sowing seed. Sow it and sow it freely, because you never know where those seeds are going to come from, but you know that God is watering it. Your job is to sow seeds. That's relationally, that's in finances, that's in your self-work, that's in your mind work, your emotional work. Sow seeds, because at the end of the day, it's going to take time to grow, but it will grow and there will be harvest. It's just your 20s are almost like a guessing game. Like, should I sow here or here? It's just like, sometimes you got to ration. Sometimes you got to ration the seed. Like, because you only got 2 seeds. Like, I remember in university being like, I do not know where this gas money is coming from, but I got to get to class. And somehow, some way, whoop, $50 in the account. Yeah, well, that will take me. You never know. But at the end of the day, just sow your seeds. And when the time comes, you will reap. But growth hurts. Growth hurts because you win, you lose, and sometimes you don't always reap in this decade. It may be in the next. And I'm waiting for my harvest. Because there are some seeds I've sown that I'm still waiting on. But at the end of the day, I know that I sowed them well, and I sowed them with good intention and with a good heart, so that eventually, at some point in time, that seed is going to reap harvest, and the fruit is going to come from that. So definitely, growth isn't pretty, but it's necessary. So just sow well and keep sowing. Now, number 3 is planning versus planting. This is the rule of seed versus the builder. So the rule, seed is like planting, and being a builder is like planning. So understanding the power, so I guess I kind of just touched on this, but understanding the power of sowing seed beyond monetary seed for the sake of your future. This is a hard lesson, because one thing I learned in my 20s was honor. And that was me sowing seed, but me also honoring and helping build other people's visions, not knowing what God wanted to do with me or when he would release me to do what he asked me to do. There are a lot of things that God gave me mid-20s that I may see the fruit of them in the next 2 to 3 years. Like, that's an 8-year gap. But at the end of the day, what he never failed to do was have me sow into other people's businesses and serve other people's businesses. There is a blessing that comes with serving and sowing. Like, when you plan and you plant, like there's always going to be something that comes out of that. Because you know what the truth is? It's all about obedience. It has really nothing to do with whether or not you want to do it. It's will you obey? And in just obeying the instructions, I've learned that it taught me, it's funny enough, like some of the things he gave me, like he asked me to give to other people. And at first, we like to be stingy with like the creativity. And God was just like, child, if I created the whole world and I gave you this one idea, you don't think I could give you 4 more? Like this stinginess, that I had it too. I struggled with being stingy at first, but I started to just give my creativity away after a while, because it was just like, you're giving me bigger ideas. And it's the concept of like, when your cup is full, pour it out and trust that it will be refilled. So for me, like planning versus planting, like just planting seeds and like sowing into serving people has always been a benefit. But there are times when things don't go as planned. But this has everything to do with having faith for the way God is going to do something. Like, sometimes it's not going to come the way you want. And something I've been hearing so often is, it's coming a different way. Be okay with that. It's not going to be the way you want it to, but it's going to come when it needs to. Period. The next one I have, number 4, is work the wait. Y'all, you already heard me talk about this. The waiting season. You ain't never going to wait as long as you will ever wait in your 20s. I feel like I've been waiting this whole decade. Like, and the thing is, but you can't let people rush you though. But that waiting season is hard, because you be looking left, right, and center, and everybody's getting blessed. And you're like, where is mine? But you have to find a discipline in working through the wait. Like, even when you're waiting on things, be intentional enough to do the work. Whether that's writing down the vision, whether that's, building relationships with people that can be a part of making this thing happen. You just got to keep working and don't stop. All right. Number 5 is the power of forgiveness. I learned this year. I learned this at 29. Like, real forgiveness. I was forgiving my whole life. I didn't realize 70 times 7 is a lot. And I learned real forgiveness this year. And the reason why I knew that I learned forgiveness is because I would think about the things that hurt me or the people that hurt me, and they wouldn't bother me anymore. That's when I was just like, oh, you grown. It took a while to mature. But the truth is, it takes a lot to forgive. Because usually forgiveness is asked for when it's not warranted. Like, I don't owe you that. But when we realize, and I know you've heard this before, but when you realize that forgiveness has nothing to do with with the person, and everything to do with you, you start to move differently. Because when you realize, oh, I haven't forgiven that, and now you have an ought in your heart. Like now you're looking around and you have gates up. Like you can't trust somebody to do this little thing because, oh, that person did it 5 years ago. And who wants to live like that? And I was living like that. Like, especially in love. Oh, he cheated on you. So every man is going to cheat. At some point, it's just like, it's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's hard. But at the end of the day, you have to work through that. And you have to really understand that power of forgiveness is when you've actually forgiven, you set yourself free. And now you've opened up yourself to endless possibilities. So that power of forgiveness is difficult because handling hurt and disappointment is heavy. But it's possible to overcome. And when you do, you actually become a better version of yourself. You be giving yourself pats on the back, because I gave myself a few of those this year. Number 6 is own it. Y'all, own it. Your mistakes, your flaws, your slick mouth. You got to own it, because the only way you can change it is when you own it. If you don't admit that you got a problem, you're never going to fix it. So I have learned to just own up to it. I got a mouth on me. It is slick and it can be petty. My friends know. But I'm owning it because I want to change it. That's the truth. And it takes maturity to want to do that, because why? It's accepted, but where I want to go and the things I want to do, this trait needs to be fixed. And it's not gonna serve a purpose when I get there. Sometimes it's not always about, whether or not it's a good or a bad thing. You just have to ask yourself, will this serve a purpose for where I want to go? And if the answer is no, own that and fix it. Period. Number 7, I'm gonna breeze through these last 4 because I kind of talked about some of them. But number 7 is therapy. Therapy. We all need therapy. Jesus. And therapy. Okay? It's hand in hand. Like, there are certain things that you have blinders on. You can't see every side of you. That's the honest truth. And then certain things you're just in complete denial about. And I was in complete denial about my pride. I was in complete denial about my lack of forgiveness. I had to own it. And now, in order to fix it, I needed a therapist. And that is one of the healthiest decisions I made, because it gave me a place where I could not only dispel all of the things that I was feeling, but be corrected, be held accountable, but also be told that it's okay. Like, it takes time to change. It takes time to evolve. It takes time to become. But you need to be guided along the way sometimes. It's not just, reading a book and it's going to change your whole world. Like, no, sometimes it does help, but you need actual tangible advice that will help you psychologically adjust the way you think and the way you see things in order to help you navigate life. So number 7 is therapy. Number 8 is transitions. Now, we already talked about this. Just go through life, and as you go through hard times, allow yourself the ability and the space to shed and to drop the weight, so that when you get into the new space, you're prepared with new new armor for what's to come. Every season doesn't require the same armor. And sometimes your armor is your faith. Sometimes your armor is actually a shield. But just allow yourself to go through transitions and navigate them well. Number 9 is grieve well, heal well. We already talked about grieving well and healing well, but listen, y'all, if I tell you nothing, I tell you this. When you get hurt, don't let nobody rush you. Take your time, cry, be angry, cut somebody out, call a friend, be like, hey, can I get your ear for 5 minutes? I just got to rant. I do this and rant, and allow yourself to feel all the emotions that you need to feel, because if you bottle that up, it's gonna come out one way or the other, whether it's through your mouth or whether it's in the form of a headache or in the form of body ailments. It will show itself one way somehow. So I say grieve well and then heal well. Take your time to heal. I know society likes to make us feel like we have to rush, but if you don't learn the lessons of why you went through what you went through, if you don't learn the new ways that you are, because transitions and hurts, and when you go through trauma, you change, whether you like it or not. The question is, will you change for the better or will you change for the worse? So definitely take the time to grieve well and take all the time that you need to heal well, but don't stay stuck for too long. You don't want to stay stuck there. And number 10, and this is what I learned last month, boundaries. We all need boundaries. I am a person who loves to be around people. I love to be around people. When you're my friend, you're my friend. You're my sister. I will go to bat for you, do whatever I have to do for you, show up when I can. This year was the first year I couldn't be that for everybody. And it showed me everybody. It showed me the truth about how people see me. If you can't show up because you simply can't, and the relationship changes or the expectation shifts, then there's a boundary issue or a lack thereof. And I realized in 2023, I had no boundaries. I had absolutely no boundaries, and people could just do what they want. And my empathy would trick me to believe that, hey, don't be selfless. Don't be selfish. It's just like, no. I am on empty. I have an empty cup and you are asking for water. And I had to learn to say no. You got to learn that 2-letter word, no. Respectfully, but for sure, no. Because at the end of the day, if it means you have to sacrifice your well-being in order to help somebody out, to an extent, because I know when it comes to motherhood, things are different. And when it comes to marriage, there's always room and moments of compromise and all of that. But like, even if it's just friendship-wise, relationally, you have to learn boundaries because they are necessary for you to become your optimal self. If you don't have boundaries and if you don't have a rejuvenation plan, you will burn out. And there was nobody coming to resuscitate you. I do not want that for you. And I experienced that, and that is it for me. So I would say learn boundaries, be okay with them, and be okay with releasing and letting go of those people or places or things that aren't okay with your boundaries. Maturity is learning how to say no and having people who are okay with you saying that. So these are the 20 things that I wish I knew and I learned throughout these last 2 decades. And I am so excited that I was able to share this with you guys. I think I'm gonna do something with this. Maybe I write a book or write a blog, because I really have 20 for each. I really have 20 things and 20 things. But for now, I just gave you a little snippet. You got half of it. It should be more than enough. I hope this helps you. And I will see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.